Pay close attention. What you're about to see is Bible prophecy being fulfilled.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you news as it relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yisrael Hawkins. We have synthetic drugs, more police shootings in the news, the Pope asking for forgiveness from gays, and troubles in Turkey. Of course, these are just a few of the reports we have for you in this broadcast. But we start off with K2. You've probably heard of it. It's not anything new. It's a synthetic drug meant to mimic the effects of marijuana, but it has left over 30 people in the city of New York in a kind of zombified state. The drug is available across the country, and Brian Arthur live streamed what looked like a zombie apocalypse as he passed several people in the city of Brooklyn with blank stares on their face. They were stumbling to walk, and they, of course, were laid out on the sidewalks. Emergency workers sent 33 people to local hospitals, saying that they appeared to be under the influence of the synthetic drug, like we said before, K2, also known as spice.
Designed to mimic marijuana, the drug has far more powerful effects. One man who used it says the drug puts you in a delusional world. It has your mind spinning and it's mind altering, and well put there, it's mind altering. Right. Many users experience illusions, rapid heart rates, and even seizures. Now, police say it's sold at small neighborhood grocery stores. The use of the drug is growing nationwide with over 3,500 calls to poison control centers over a 5-month period last year. And that, Katan, is a 229% jump from the previous year. That's a big jump.
So it's definitely growing in popularity. Well, as authorities try to ban the use of the ingredients in the synthetic drug, manufacturers just simply come up with a new version of the drug, thereby making it virtually impossible to ban.
Well, road rage, nothing new, right? Well, it's becoming increasingly troublesome to the general public. So bad, in fact, the state of Connecticut put this warning in their driving manual under the heading Behaviors that Cause Trouble, Gestures. It reads, if you want to wave to another driver, please use all of your fingers. Now, one victim, a photographer, Alex Stone, was taking pictures of a car at the side of the road when another driver lost it.
A new study from AAA shows that 80% of drivers express anger behind the wheel at least once in the last year. And 50% of drivers, that's over 100 million people, purposefully tailgated, while 47% of drivers yelled at another driver. And surprisingly, Jeff, 8 million drivers get out of their vehicles to actually confront another driver, or they will use their vehicle to bump another vehicle, of course, creating a very dangerous situation for both and any pedestrians. There's also been the use of bats, guns, there have been busted windows, and of course, vehicle ramming videos have all gone viral online as people take video of these road rage incidents and post them to social media.
Mike McCluskey, an expert of aggression and professor of psychology at Temple University in Philadelphia, said the stress of a trip adds to people acting out on aggression on the road. Now, of course, I'm sure there is stress, a lot of traffic and so forth, but that does not give one the right to act aggressively to somebody else. So it's definitely a bad scene right there.
And I bet you that anger fades really quickly when they realize that they've been responsible for doing serious harm to someone, or even taking another person's life. We've seen that as well. Well, from the Vatican, new statements from the Pope says that members of the Roman Catholic Church should seek forgiveness from homosexuals. Cardinal and close advisor to Pope Francis suggested that the Church and the broader society had mistreated gays over the years, and suggested that maybe it's time for the Church to make an apology.
The Pope's response was, and of course Catani was taking into account the recent shooting at the gay nightclub in Florida called Pulse. He said, anytime a Christian could have defended someone and failed to do it, then they should make an apology. That applies to gays, but not just gays, he said. We also should probably be apologizing to the poor, women who have been exploited, children who have been taken advantage of due to child labor, people who have been victims of armed conflicts that the church has blessed over the years.
It's interesting that he mentioned child labor, but didn't take into consideration all the child sexual abuse that has been had at the hands of the Roman Catholic Church, where they've already paid out billions of dollars to victims that were subject to that type of treatment.
Which has probably been way more devastating than any of these child labor situations he may be trying to imply.
And may have led to some of these other problems that we see in society right now. Well, one of the world's more neutral countries has recently put into effect a ban on women wearing burkas. Several Muslim women walked into the streets in full Islamic dress after the law was implemented and were immediately confronted by police. Now, violators of the new law, of course, will receive fines. And the new law only applies to women whose veil covers their body from head to toe. The law is meant to send a message to Islamic fundamentalists in Switzerland, and it seems like it's kind of infringing on people's rights to practice modesty as well.
Well, France was the first European country to ban the full burqa in 2011, followed by Belgium in the same year. Now, also last year, the wealthiest region in Italy, Lombardy, stopped women from wearing burqas in hospitals and government buildings.
Now, from attacks on modesty to attacks on citizens, Larry McGee has the latest for us on yet another 2 chapters in the ongoing tragic saga of the police and the community. Larry, what do you have for us?
Yet more heartbreaking reports this week of traffic stops and other police encounters gone bad. In Minnesota, Philando Castile was shot multiple times by policemen during a routine stop that ultimately turned fatal. Mr. Castile, who was licensed to carry, reportedly informed the officer that he had a gun. He was asked to produce identification and upon reaching for it was shot 4 times by the attending officer. The victim's girlfriend, who was the driver of the vehicle, began live streaming the incident on Facebook at that point, and the graphic footage initiates with Castile moaning in agony with his shirt soaked in blood as his life slowly slips away from him. The officer can be seen with his weapon still trained on the victim as his girlfriend attempts to calmly recount the order of events leading up to the shooting. The officer himself appeared to be distressed by the shooting, but not more so than Mr. Castile's family, one member of which classified the recent string of televised police killings as modern-day lynchings. In the ultimate twist of irony, the victim's mother said her son did everything by the law, and he died by the hands of the law. A federal investigation regarding another police fatality in Baton Rouge is also grabbing headlines this week. The Justice Department is looking into the death of Alton Sterling, as video footage of the young man's death is making its rounds on the internet and infuriating members of the community. 2 different videos show Alton being taken down by an officer, and as one officer has him pinned down to the ground, another officer draws his weapon and aims it at Sterling's chest in an effort to assist his partner. It's at that point that the firearm discharges several times and the camera veers away. Carl DeBody, Baton Rouge's police chief, says that they are committed to getting to the bottom of the matter, and he is accepting full responsibility for the incident. The state's governor, who says he has learned lessons from the manner in which similar matters have been handled across the country, has opted to personally invite the U.S. Justice Department to spearhead the investigation. Members of the community gathered at the location where Mr. Sterling was slain to demonstrate and express outrage for the killing. Quinetta McMillan, the mother of Alton's son, spoke with reporters as her son collapsed in tears, stating that she will now be forced to raise their son who will remember what happened to his father, and she is vowing that she will not rest nor merely allow Alton Sterling to be swept in the dirt. The president spoke from Poland on the tragedy sweeping the nation, stating that the recent police murders in Dallas are a reminder of the sacrifices that police officers make. The president stated that today the nation's focus is on the victims and their families. They are heartbroken. The entire city of Dallas is grieving. Police officers who are a tight-knit family are experiencing the loss to their core, and America is grieving with them. As a nation, the president advised that citizens remember to express their gratitude to officers not just today, but every day. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump took to social media to say that the incident was an attack on the country, a coordinated, premeditated assault on the men and women who keep us safe. Democratic frontrunner Hillary Clinton chimed in, also calling for empathy, stating that we should walk in the shoes of police officers who do dangerous jobs, and we should walk in the shoes of African Americans who worry about every traffic stop or every routine arrest or just going out into their neighborhoods. She went on to say that we have to start seeing each other with respect and dignity. Respected House Representative John Lewis had the most noteworthy say, stating that we all live in the same house, and it doesn't matter whether we are black or white, Latino, Asian American, or Native American, we are one people, we are one family, we are one house, and we must learn to live together as brothers and sisters. If not, we will perish as fools. Concern is now heightened across the country for police officials as citizens from Tennessee to Georgia and Missouri are being cited as having taken shots at police connected to recent tensions. Major cities across the nation have now mandated that officers patrol in pairs. Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson is urging communities and police officers to come together, commenting that violence is never the answer. At least one top police official in Philadelphia thinks that things will get better, but he says that law enforcement will have to be very intentional about how it works and connects with its communities, but communities will have to be willing to do the same things as well. And until that occurs, he says, the situation is never going to get to where it needs to be. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Katan Jeff, back to you.
Well, Katan, you can see, of course, you have two African-American men in separate instances killed, and then an African-American shooting white police officers. That type of back and forth, revengeance and retaliation is definitely not going to solve anything, and really probably only lead to greater instances if somebody doesn't step in and stop it.
So law enforcement and the citizens in the community both need some type of training in anger management and, of course, in developing positive character.
That's right. Well, tragedy has struck France once again, this time in the city of Nice. After a 24-hour investigation, officials still do not have a clear motive for the attack that killed 84 people and injured over 200 more. They are under the assumption that the attack is, quote, probably linked to radical Islam in one way or another, end quote. But no link has been found, nor any terrorist group claiming responsibility for it at this time.
So it's just an
assumption.
That's right. Well, what is known is that the man who rammed his 19-ton delivery truck into a crowd of people celebrating Bastille Day was 31-year-old Mohammed Balel, a man who had recently lost his job and was going through a messy divorce.
The horrific scene took place along a seaside promenade, which was filled with people who had gathered for the festivities equal to that of the United States 4th of July celebrations. Now, zigzagging down the road, Balel's truck barreled through the crowd, hitting dozens of unsuspecting people.
Wow. One report said outside the Hotel Negresco, Balel shot at police who fired back, but he continued to drive down the boulevard, hitting more people. After a mile and a half of confusion and sheer terror, the police were able to stop the driver with the hail of bullets, but for many, it was too late. He had already left behind him a trail of dead, dying, and injured victims. People who witnessed the attack rushed to help before medical teams arrived on the scene. Among the victims, 10 children were killed. Wow.
Balel was born in Tunisia but resided legally in France. He was a truck driver and family man with a violent history whose world was falling apart. While police were aware of his past, they did not see any evidence that would lead them to believe he had become, again, quote, radicalized by ISIS or any other terror group. So they do want to, they're trying to make a connection there, see if he's associated with any of these groups, but so far haven't found any.
Neighbors back this up, painting a picture of a troubled man. One neighbor interviewed by CVS reporters said he stank of alcohol even during Ramadan. It was his eyes, they scared me. Well, Bilal's ex-wife was arrested the morning after the attack, and police are hoping she can shed some light on the attack.
French people recalled the deadly assaults in Paris last November that killed 130 people. However, this attack seemed much different from that one because, unlike the terrorists in Paris, Bilal was not well armed. The Katana was said that he really only had one real gun, several fake guns. He had a grenade, but the grenade itself was a dud. So, you know, really, sadly, his main weapon in there was the vehicle that he was driving that took the lives of so many.
Interesting. Sad. Mohammed Bilal's father, who still lives in Tunisia, gave an interview in which he did confirm that his son had a history of mental illness, which had led to several breakdowns in the past. And of course, Jeff, as we have reported, there has been an increase or a spike in mental illness being associated with these types of activities.
Right, and it's probably that as the reason a lot more than the, you know, trying to link it to some terrorist group. You know, so they really should focus on the mental illness more than trying to connect them to a particular group.
That's right.
Well, an update on a recent story in North Virginia. A top Navy official was recorded on a cell phone pointing a gun at 3 young men whose car was parked in front of his house. Now, a few days later, he was arrested, but the judge said that there was not sufficient probable cause and he was released without any charges being pressed. Now, 1 month later, Deputy Assistant Secretary Carnegie Ohannesane has been placed on administrative leave as police further investigate the incident. So they're once again opening up, seeing if they missed something the first time, seeing if there's anything more to the story.
It appears that Turkey's military has launched an attempt to overthrow the elected civilian government. The events unfolded very quickly in the evening of July 16th. In the city of Istanbul, Turkey's largest city, home to 14 million people, there are troops and tanks on the streets. They've blocked the city's 2 main bridges and entered the airport. They have also taken over the Turkish state television.
Reports of military jets flying overhead in both Istanbul and the Turkish capital of Ankara have come in, as well as gunfire being heard across Istanbul. In Ankara, there were also reports of helicopter gunfire and explosion, as well as gunfire around the parliament building.
Wow. The Turkish president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, spoke out on Turkish television and at one point even from his cell phone, condemning the coup or attempted coup and rallying the people to actually take to the streets of the city in support of the current government. Of course, his location is unknown. Hopefully, you know, the people aren't being attacked as a result of their taking to the streets.
Now, the cause for the takeover is really President Erdogan himself. While his supporters love him, his critics say that he's forced his own conservative Islamic ideas on the Turkish people, which has chipped away at their democratic freedom.
Interesting. Turkey is an important U.S. ally and also a member of NATO. The U.S. currently has a major Air Force operation stationed in Turkey with about 1,500 airmen at the Incirlik Air Base. The country is also important in the fight against ISIS and neighboring Syria.
Well, there is uncertainty as to the stability of the country. If the military coup is successful, the U.S. government may see it as a positive change, and that, Katan, because they've said that President Erdogan has been at times a very difficult ally.
So it would be to their benefit if he was actually ousted.
That's right.
As the president. Well, we'll see how that plays out. Upon the close of the Pan-Orthodox Council, the Ecumenical Patriarch of Constantinople sent a delegation to visit Pope Francis. Among the delegation was Metropolitan Methodius, who heads the Greek Orthodox metropolis of Boston. They talked about the meeting between the Pope and Patriarch Bartholomew last April on the island of Lesbos.
Methodius also presented the Pope with a letter from the Patriarch. They also exchanged gifts. Now, the Pope received a medallion with the embrace between St. Andrew and St. Peter as a symbol of unity between the two churches. Pope Francis reciprocated with the medallion of St. Martin of Tours and explained its meaning as, "It covers the poor, and this is our mission." He also presented Methodius with 2 of his major writings. So we'll have to see what further comes out of these meetings. Pope and it seems like these kings are definitely starting to get together and work on something. So maybe Yisrael Hawkins will be the one that can explain to us what's good, what these meetings are all about. Well, don't go anywhere. Up next is Yisrael Hawkins. And of course, don't forget to contact the House of Yahweh and order your free Prophetic Word magazine and monthly newsletter. Here's how.
And when you contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at the House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can also call them at 1-800-613-9494. You can visit them on any of their websites at www.yahweh.com, www.yisraelhawkins.com, www.yahwehsbranch.com, or visit our website at www.ypnnews.com. You can also email them at info@yahweh.com. And for all calls outside the United States, please dial the number on your screen. And of course, don't forget the best study resource to the Holy Scriptures on the internet, the Yisrael Says program. You can find that by going to www.yisraelsays.com.
Well, don't go anywhere. Up next is Yisrael Hawkins, bringing you the only way to have true peace and joy in your life. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
And I'm Katan Alexander.
Thanks for watching.